Well, we've been at Cybos for the last 4 years, I guess, and then it started the journey at Geneva in context of what we are talking about, hyper-threading and what's the ecosystem today, and the key agenda of open banking and PSD2. Back in 2016 in Geneva was the first time we heard of PSD2, and it was a pretty exciting space. And then it moved to London and then Sydney before we were here in I think it moved to Canada, if I'm not wrong. And then here in London, we're talking more about that. So, from a concept to a regulatory compliance with the deadline, that's been the journey, and that's been pretty exciting. While this has happened, I think this also evangelized the concept of payments and open banking in other continents. For example, in Toronto and as well as in Sydney. Where they are following the London or the UK model from an open banking or payments and PSD2. So, Biju, I think should be a better person to talk more about the current context of open banking and PSD2 in London and in Cybos here.
Thanks, Rajesh. So, I think it's very relevant. The hyper-connected theme, PSD2, from when we all first heard about it 2.5 years ago to where we are today. It actually went live across Europe less than 12 days ago, right, on September 14th. And it's all about better connectivity. It's banks engaging with customers through TPPs or as TPPs. It's very, very relevant. The whole format is changing. So we think absolutely yes. The theme is super relevant today, especially with all the new things happening around PSD2s and open banking and payments and blockchain. So as with all regulation, different banks are approaching regulation differently. Some people jump into it. Some of them follow a very risk-based approach, and we saw the same thing with GDPR last year. We've seen the same thing with PSD2 now. Generally, we're seeing across Europe, I think the exact numbers vary, but from a PSD2 API technology standpoint, from what we are seeing, and from what most of our competitors are also saying, the compliance levels at the moment seem roughly about 30% in that region. In the UK, the FCA has just announced a 6-month adjustment period. And I don't want to go into defining what that is. I think everybody in the industry knows what that actually stands for. But that's where the industry is today. That's where what the situation is like today. And from a Fiorano standpoint, we have two very specific products for open banking. The first one is a fast comply product for PSD2, which helps banks get up and running, publish what they have to in a compliant manner with PSD2 very, very quickly. And that's a platform that complies with the Open Banking UK, the Berlin Group, the STET, now HKMI Hong Kong guidelines out of the box. So it's pretty much install, connect, switch on, and you're up and running. Our Open Banking proposition is slightly more different. It is a platform, it's a capability that helps banks aggregate and reinvent themselves quickly. We have been doing this successfully for a long time. Our first open banking kind of reference is 7 years ago. We've helped one of our customers go from 70,000 customers to 38 million over a 5-year period in pure open banking aggregation style, or in that format. But that's before open banking became a thing, which it is now. So we've got two very well-positioned products in that space already. So it's very, very exciting for us. We're really excited to be at Cybos, excited to be working with all our customers across Europe and across the world right now in open banking.
So digital transformation, that is the in thing for any financial institution or bank, and the APIs which are running across majorly all the event organizations are talking about APIs. So if you ask me about Middle East and Africa around 4 or 5 years back, no institution or bank was interested to go into the digital transformation or integration core banking to channels to the third parties. Everything was on a point-to-point kind of mode. For the past couple of years, with a lot of education, what Fiorano has been doing across the value what a bank would get using the existing technology of a middleware or the API management, how can they quickly open up their core, that is a black box, as an API and publish it to their partners, third-party partners. So that is the huge value what Fiorano brings on to the Middle East and African market, which brings down to the open banking, which is slowly catching up, which is already here in the UK, European regions, but that particular market is slowly catching up. There's lots of conversations happening in Nigeria, Kenya. Bahrain is adopting the open banking standards. So it's a long way to go, but each country is still, to come out with the compliance and take it up to the next level. So there's lots of opportunities, comes with lots of issues, but down the line, I would say there's humongous chain where the unbanked to the bank for the financial institutions as a roadmap.
Well, that's a pretty interesting question, isn't it? Traditionally, banks have been very inward-looking as an enterprise, but with more of the digital explosion and the millennials looking at more digital as a platform, the banks can't be just stationary where they are. It's no longer people are going to the banks are getting into the pockets of the people. So it's the smartphone is the bank today and not the bank, the building. So when you say this, and in the digital context, FinTechs are kind of disrupting the banking system without being bankers themselves. They're technology companies, but they're offering a lot of payment services. They're offering a lot of basic banking services, as well as they are providing the platform for what you call as financial inclusion. In certain markets where people never had formal banking relationships, they are able to kind of engage themselves with the financial institutions or banks because you have fintechs which are kind of offering a very low entry barrier technology driven concept for financial inclusion for banking. So fintechs really are ideally will end up being an extension to the banking, the traditional banks, while probably 3 years back or 2 years back, and even a year back as you go, people thought they're going to compete. And banks started thinking, now I need to do something rapidly to compete with the fintech. But gradually they realized Google Pay is good to collaborate and not compete. Alipay is better off to complement and work together with them. So that's just an example. Now we talk about APIs. So this whole world of digital fabric in a banking system or in any financial ecosystem where you're driven by the digital and the smartphone, and more often is the millennials who are leading this whole charge of a digital banking challenge and environment, demand for digital banking. So APIs become a critical thing because it's no longer you have anything to do within the bank. Whatever you were doing within the bank was your core banking, and now you're talking payments, you're talking utilities, you're talking e-commerce, you're talking B2B, all in a digital fabric. So which means APIs become a very critical component. And that's where APIs, creating the API economy is a huge asset value for banking institutions. And now having said this, once you have the APIs, what can I do with these APIs? How can I efficiently manage these APIs? Do I have enough security for them? Can I meter some of my APIs, monetize them? So maybe there's a new revenue stream for me as a bank. Can I do all this in an environment which doesn't disrupt my rest of my banking services? Or can I bring all my banking services into this platform and address more digital-based banking services? So how can I do security? How can I monitor stuff? How can I scale and deploy a large number of APIs, as well as create a sandbox, something for my third-party developers, my B2B partners, or others who want to engage with me in my services? How do they self-service, test their APIs? So can I give a sandbox, sort of a developer portal for them? And that's what you need in an API platform. Now this is what a bank's looking for. And if this is what digital is all about, API is all about. Fiorano has the API platform, which has a completely scalable API gateway platform, which kind of supports your security, metering, monitoring, monetization, rendering different kinds of APIs with different kind of technology that you use to create your APIs and seamlessly work within the systems of the bank as well, not just external to the bank, and provide a wonderful sandbox for developers to kind of self-service their APIs, go test them out, put them in production and stuff like that. So the Fiorano API platform value proposition is all about enabling the banks on this digital journey. Isn't that a wonderful number to start off? 10,000, that looks amazing, isn't it? To me at least. It was probably 5,000 5 years back. So if Cybos managed to double its numbers in 5 years or the last 4 years, that kind of straight away says what is the impact Cybos as a platform is providing for technology vendors, for services players, for banks, for financial institutions, FinTechs. It's really an exciting engagement which is growing every year, as I've been seeing over the last 4 years. Kind of hackathons happening here. So you've seen virtually it's turning out to become like a huge technology event where bankers are part of it, and it's no longer a banker event where few service vendors used to turn up sometime. So that's the kind of impact, that's the kind of opportunities that Cybos is able to create and engage different moving parts of the ecosystem, as you call that. So you have a huge, a very wide range of organizations who are both on the banking side, the fintechs, technology providers, and a lot of solution service providers. So it's a perfect platform that you look forward to be here every year. It's kind of this is the place to be if you want to be doing some business with in the banking ecosystem. It's exciting books.